Over the last few days, Joe Biden has been shitting the bed at breakneck speeds. But right now, I want to talk about how he's trying to kill the $15 minimum wage and make sure that it's not included in the stimulus bill that they're about to pass through the House and through the Senate. So I'm sure many of you in the audience have been following the story over the last few days, and you probably get the gist of it. You probably know the most important details, but for those of you who haven't been following or aren't up to date with the details, let me just give make sure we're all on the same page real quick. So the Democrats, as you know, control the House, they control the Senate, they control the White House. You would think that if you're one of the more naive people who are, still kind of new to politics, you would think that means that they would pass their legislative agenda, right? The issues that they say are most important to the Democratic parties, like raising the minimum wage. They say that they want to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. In fact, that was one of the most cited reasons from people on the left, who meanwhile progressives, who held their nose and voted for Joe Biden. They said that, hey man, he says he's going to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And they believed him. So now, Biden has the House and the Senate. Absolutely no reason why he can't pass the minimum wage, right? You're wrong. Because as several people have pointed out over the last few years, one of the things that Democrats are the best at is coming up with excuses for why they can't do anything to help the working class, why they can't do anything to help the people who voted for them to improve their lives. True to form, when presented with this opportunity to pass the minimum wage, and they don't need a single Republican vote because they're trying to pass the stimulus bill through reconciliation. And that means you need 51 votes, and it is filibuster proof. So in this scenario, Democrats really had to bend over backwards to come up with a reason why they can't pass $15 minimum wage, even though they control the House and the Senate and the White House. At first, they were trying to hedge, and they were trying to say, oh, I don't know, Joe Manchin says he's against it. And for those, Joe Manchin is one of the most conservative right-wing Democrats in the Democratic Party. He might as well be a Republican. When Trump was in office, I think Joe Manchin was voting with Trump and the Republicans like 60% of the time. So most of the time, he was just voting with Republicans. He was voting with Donald Trump on policy issues. So Joe Manchin might as well be a Republican. And he comes out and says, he plays the scapegoat for the Democratic Party. And anytime the Democrats control government, they try to find one of these scapegoats. Back when Obama was president, it was Joe Lieberman. And it's funny how the names always start with Joe. It was Joe Lieberman, and the excuse that Obama gave for why he abandoned the public option is because he couldn't get Joe Lieberman on board. And the only thing Joe Lieberman would do is pass the Affordable Care Act, which is basically forcing everybody to buy private health insurance. And that was the excuse he gave, but really we know it's because they just took a bunch of money from the private health insurance industry. And the Affordable Care Act, as it was written, was a giant giveaway to the industry. So Joe Lieberman was a scapegoat last time. This time they tried to make it Joe Manchin. Nobody was really buying that. In fact, as soon as he did that, there was a bunch of pressure on him, and he kind of had to change his tune on that. So they moved from that convenient excuse for why they can't pass the $15 minimum wage in the stimulus bill. They moved from that to the Senate Parliamentarian, and this is I'll get to that later. So the Parliamentarian is basically somebody who is completely unelected. They have no official power in the Senate or over the Senate. And what their job is basically is to interpret the rules of the Senate and give advice to the Senate or the person in charge of the Senate, which is technically the vice president, and give their interpretation of rules to the budget chair, to the chairs of the different committees and things like that. So it's really just an advisor. And so the parliamentarian, in order to put the $15 minimum wage into the stimulus bill, they had to first make sure that it meets the requirements for budget reconciliation. And in order for it to meet the requirements for budget reconciliation, the policy has to affect the federal budget. It either has to increase or decrease the federal budget, one of the two. And so there was studies on it that said that if you raise the minimum wage, it will affect the federal budget. And it's not clear exactly. There's some that say it would decrease the federal budget because then less people would need government assistance from like Section 8 or food stamps and things like that. So if people are being paid more, they would use less government resources. So there's an argument that it lowers the federal budget. And there's also an argument that it increases the federal budget because then now all the federal government would have to pay all of their employees $15 an hour. And if you're going to do that, by definition, Congress would have to increase the budget to come up with the money to pay the workers the difference in their wages. So there's an argument either way that it affects the federal budget. But the Senate parliamentarian gave her ruling on this, or her advice on this, and she pulls it out of her ass and says it doesn't affect the budget. And this was the excuse that Joe Biden was looking for. And then as soon as she comes out with this, he's like, man, what can we do? We tried so hard to get the $15 minimum wage in the bill, but the Senate parliamentarian, she said it doesn't meet the requirements of budget reconciliation, so we can't put it in there. Oh, what are we going to do? And that is such bullshit, because the vice president, who's technically the president of the Senate and has even more power now because she's the tie-breaking vote in the Senate. So the vice president of the Senate, the president of the Senate, which is the vice president, she can overrule the Senate parliamentarian on any advisement that she gives. So she can overrule her on this specific decision that she came to, that it doesn't meet the requirements of budget reconciliation. Kamala Harris could overrule her if she really wanted $15 minimum wage. And there's precedent for this. They did this when they tried to repeal Obamacare. They tried to do it through budget reconciliation. The parliamentarian said that it can't be done through budget reconciliation. And they didn't just overrule the Senate parliamentarian. The Republicans fired the parliamentarian and hired somebody else who's going to agree with them. And they did the same thing when they passed the Trump tax cuts. And they did the same thing when they did the Bush tax cuts. So anytime they really want to do it, you can overrule the parliamentarian. And they know this. The Democrats know this. Kamala Harris knows this. Joe Biden knows this. But they just don't want to do it because they don't want to raise the minimum wage. And that gets to the main reason why I'm doing this video, is to let everybody know what's going on here. It isn't that, oh my goodness, we tried so hard and it couldn't happen. We had a knockdown, drag out fight and we did everything we could, but we just couldn't pass it. No, that's not what this is. They don't want to pass the minimum wage, $15 minimum wage. So they're just coming up with a bunch of excuses why they can't do it. And everybody should know that. And they're hiding behind all this procedure and the process humping, the process mongering, and they're acting as if this ruling from the parliamentarian is just like, they're literally acting like she's the most powerful person in government. And all these elected officials can't overrule her. The president can't overrule her. The vice president, who's the president of the Senate, can't overrule her. This unelected person has so much power that even though the Democrats have the House, the Senate, and the White House, this one person is the reason why they can't pass the $15 minimum wage. Isn't that so convenient? So I have so much to get into about this, but first, you already know the deal. If you're able to contribute to the show financially, the links to Patreon is in the About page of the YouTube channel. You can sign up and do different monthly subscriptions, and I don't post Patreon exclusive content because I feel like I want everybody to have access to the content that I make, whether you can afford to pay for it or not. So if you sign up for the Patreon, it's just a way of helping to support the show. You can also do a one-time contribution through PayPal. And like always, I'm incredibly grateful for all the people who have contributed financially over the last few months. I'm grateful for all the people who keep showing up and sharing the videos, watching the videos, leaving comments. And yes, I do read all the comments. I'm just incredibly grateful because you guys help support the show and have made it get to where we are right now with over 4,000 subscribers on YouTube. So shout out to the audience, best audience on YouTube. Now back to this story. So the first point I want to make is the fake process humping, because this is just it goes to show how bullshit this is, how much theater is in all this. I cannot find words to speak today. Because the Democrats and Republicans too, but they all break the rules of government whenever it's convenient for them. When it comes to conflicts of interest, they'll do it. They'll hire people who have direct conflicts of interest and act like that's not a problem. People who just have come directly from industry, like Lloyd Austin, who I've talked about, was sitting on the board of Raytheon. Joe Biden picks him to be the Secretary of Defense and have a direct role in military action. And he was one of the people who was profiting off of these endless wars. And then he'll go, as soon as he's done being Secretary of Defense, he'll go right back to being a defense contractor and making millions of dollars off of war and building weapons for the military and genocide all over the world. So people with the direct conflicts of interest, they'll violate all types of ethic rules and hire them. Or just violating the Constitution. The Constitution is supposed to be the supreme law of the land. That's supposed to overrule every and any law. That's supposed to direct the actions of government, right? None of them give a fuck about the Constitution. There was Joe Biden, as we speak, trying to prosecute Julian Assange, a journalist, for doing journalism. Clearly violation of the First Amendment. The government doing mass surveillance, spying on everybody, collecting their phone records, text messages, internet history, emails, all that stuff for every American, everybody in this country. That's unconstitutional. They're doing it without a warrant, and it's illegal. They don't give a fuck. They're still doing it. They've been doing it since Bush. Joe Biden's doing it right now. The airstrikes. Joe Biden just did illegal, unconstitutional airstrikes in Syria without the approval of Congress. Didn't ask for any approval, even though in the Constitution it mandates that he does. But now, when it comes to getting policies to help people, the procedures, the process, mind the process, good sir. And now, because the Senate Parliamentarian, again, somebody who's unelected, has no official power in government, just there to give advice, now that she says something that goes against the policy, guess you can't do it. Not an ounce of pushback, no public pressure, no, fuck the rules, I'll do it anyway. And if you have a problem with it, take me to court. None of that. None of none of that same energy when it comes to helping people. And it goes to show you that this is just an excuse. If you believe that the Democrats just can't do it, you're a fucking sucker. They don't want to do it. And they lied to everybody when they were running around talking about vote for me, I'm going to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. They were lying to everybody, and they had no intention of doing it. And this is proof of that right here.